Have you ever wondered what were the first words ever spoken by humans, before English, before Arabic, before any modern tongue? There were languages so old, so mysterious, that even history struggles to remember their names. Today, we're traveling thousands of years into the past to uncover the world's oldest languages, the voices that built our civilizations, carried our prayers, and shaped the way we think today. From the ancient temples of Mesopotamia to the sacred lands of India, from the deserts of Canaan to the mountains of Greece, this is the untold story of how humanity first learned to speak and how those forgotten voices still live inside our words. Sumerian. Long before the rise of Babylon, Egypt, or Greece, there existed a civilization that changed the destiny of humankind. It was the land of Sumer, nestled between the two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Around 7,000 years ago, these ancient people created something that had never existed before, a written language. The Sumerians were farmers, builders, and dreamers. They wanted to record the rhythm of their world, their harvests, their prayers, their kings. So they began pressing tiny wedge-shaped marks into soft clay tablets. This system became known as cuneiform, from the Latin word cuneos, meaning wedge. Each mark represented a sound or an idea, forming a code of communication that would outlive its makers. Through these symbols, Sumerians wrote hymns to their gods, poems like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known stories in human history, and detailed records of trade, taxes, and even astronomy. Every clay tablet was like a voice from the dawn of civilization. When modern archaeologists uncovered these tablets in the ruins of Ur and Uruk, they realized they were touching humanity's first written thoughts. Though the Sumerian language disappeared thousands of years ago, it left behind the foundation of all writing that came after the alphabetic systems, the idea of documentation, the birth of recorded history. Sumerian was not merely a language, it was the moment humankind learned to speak forever. Egyptian. While the Sumerians carved wedges into clay far to the west along the eternal Nile River, another miracle of language was unfolding. The ancient Egyptians believed that words carried the breath of life, a divine energy that connected humans to the gods. To them, writing was sacred, and so they invented a language of images, hieroglyphs. Every hieroglyph was a piece of art, a falcon symbolizing the god Horus, an eye representing protection, a sun disk for creation. Together, they formed a mysterious symphony of sound and image. For thousands of years, Egyptian scribes used these sacred symbols to record everything: royal decrees, prayers to Ra, stories of pharaohs, and detailed instructions for the afterlife. Hieroglyphs were carved deep into stone walls, painted on papyrus scrolls, and inscribed inside pyramids to guide the dead to eternity. But when Egypt's old religion faded and new empires rose, the knowledge of reading hieroglyphs vanished. For centuries, no one could understand what these sacred pictures said until 1799, when a black stone was discovered in the town of Rosetta. The Rosetta Stone, inscribed with the same text in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphic scripts, became the key that unlocked the lost voice of ancient Egypt. When scholars finally deciphered it, the mummies, tombs, and temples began to speak again after 2,000 years of silence. Through their language, the Egyptians didn't just write history, they wrote eternity itself, Elamite. Beyond Mesopotamia, across the rugged lands of ancient Iran, there existed another mysterious tongue, Elamite. It was spoken by the people of Elam, a civilization that rose near the ancient city of Susa. Though not as famous as Egypt or Babylon, Elam held secrets of its own, and its language remains one of the greatest puzzles in linguistic history. Elamite appeared suddenly around the 3rd millennium BC with no clear ancestor. Scholars have searched for its relatives, comparing it to Sumerian, Dravidian, and Indo-Iranian tongues, but it belongs to none. It stands isolated, unique, like a voice from a forgotten world. The Elamites used their own script, sometimes adapting the Sumerian cuneiform, but with a rhythm and pattern that was entirely their own. Their inscriptions speak of kings, wars, temples, and gods, but the meanings are incomplete, as if half the message was lost to time. For historians, Elamite is both a key and a lock. It tells us that an entire culture once flourished between Mesopotamia and Persia, yet it refuses to reveal everything about them. Even with the most advanced technology, linguists can only understand fragments. The rest remains buried under centuries of silence. Elamite reminds us that human language, like life itself, can vanish, leaving behind symbols that whisper but never fully explain. It is the voice of a civilization that spoke to the world once and then disappeared into the desert winds. Adian. When the power of Sumer began to fade, a new voice rose in the same ancient land, the language of Adian. Born in Mesopotamia, it carried the echo of empire and the rhythm of command. Unlike the Sumerian tongue, Adian belonged to the Semitic family related to Hebrew and Arabic, yet it borrowed the wedge-shaped cuneiform, writing from Sumerians as if continuing the story they had begun. Adian became the language of kings, soldiers, and scribes, the chosen tongue of mighty empires like Babylon and Assyria. On clay tablets, it recorded everything from business transactions to grand myths. One of its most famous creations was the Epic of Gilgamesh, a story of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality, written thousands of years before Homer's Iliad. Adian was also the language of diplomacy. During the Bronze Age, it served as the international medium between Egypt, Hittites, and Mesopotamia. But as new powers rose, Adian slowly gave way to Aramaic, fading like the twilight of an ancient day. Still, it left behind thousands of tablets, fragments of a civilization that first tried to understand gods, humanity, and destiny through written words. In those small clay symbols, the Akkadians preserved the heartbeat of one of the earliest great empires. Tamil, far to the south, beyond the mountains of India, in the lush lands of ancient Dravida, another language was being spoken. Tamil. Tamil. Unlike the tongues that vanished into ruins, Tamil refused to die. It is one of the oldest living languages on Earth, spoken today by over 70 million people. The roots of Tamil stretch back more than 5,000 years into a time when poets and scholars of the essay Mage wrote verses about love, war, nature, and philosophy. These poems, carved on palm leaves, revealed a culture that valued beauty, logic, and emotion. The Tamil script evolved from ancient Brahmi letters, transforming into a flowing form that mirrored the grace of the language itself. What makes Tamil extraordinary is its continuity. While Sumerian, Egyptian, and Akkadian fell silent, Tamil kept evolving, but never broke its link to the past. Even modern Tamil speakers can recognize words written 2,000 years ago. It is a bridge between the ancient and the modern world, a living fossil of human expression. Tamil's endurance shows that a language is more than words. It is identity, pride, and memory. It carries the soul of an unbroken civilization that has witnessed millennia of change and still sings in the same voice. Sanskrit. From the sacred lands of the Vedic world emerged Sanskrit, a language so precise, so structured, that even modern linguists call it the language of perfection. It was spoken and sung by sages, written in hymns that formed the earliest scriptures of Hinduism. The Vedas, Sanskrit, was never just a tool for speech. It was believed to be divine sound, Shabda Brahma, the cosmic vibration that created the universe. Sanskrit. Every word in Sanskrit carries layers of meaning. Its grammar, designed by the scholar Panini, is so systematic that it inspired modern computer scientists. Some even describe it as the first programmed language in human history. Through Sanskrit, the ancient world explored astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. Beyond India, Sanskrit became the root of countless languages in Asia, shaping words in Hindi, Bengali, Nepali, and even influencing Indonesian and Thai. Its mantras traveled across mountains and seas, carried by monks and teachers to every corner of the East. Though its daily use has faded, Sanskrit spirit is still alive in temples, chants, and philosophy. It remains not just a language, but a reflection of human thought seeking order in the chaos of the universe. Chinese, Old Chinese. In the Far East, where dynasties rose and fell like waves upon the Yellow River, another voice of humanity began to take shape. Old Chinese. It is one of the few languages that has traveled through more than 3,000 years without losing its soul. Its earliest form was found carved on oracle bones, pieces of turtle shell and animal bones used by ancient priests to communicate with the gods. These markings from around 1200 BC are the first known examples of Chinese writing. Unlike other languages that faded into history, Chinese evolved like a living river flowing through time, but never stopping. Its writing system was not based on alphabet or sound. Each character represented an idea, an entire thought captured in one symbol. A single stroke could mean mountain, another sun, and another heart. Together they formed poetry, philosophy, and wisdom that shaped the world's largest civilization. Chinese became more than communication. It was art, calligraphy, meditation. Every brushstroke was believed to reflect the writer's spirit. And remarkably, even after thousands of years, modern Chinese writing still carries the bones of those ancient symbols. Old Chinese is not just history, it is a living thread that connects emperors, poets, and common people through one unbroken line of language: Hebrew. In the deserts of the Middle East, among nomadic tribes and sacred scrolls, the voice of Hebrew began to rise. It was the language of prophets, prayers, and ancient laws. The words of the Torah, the Psalms, and countless hymns were written in Hebrew, a language believed to be a gift from God himself. Each letter was said to hold spiritual energy. Even the act of writing was an act of faith. For centuries, Hebrew was spoken across ancient Israel and Judah, echoing through temples and markets. But when those kingdoms fell and the people were scattered across the earth, Hebrew disappeared from daily life. It became a sacred tongue used only for worship and scripture. For 2,000 years, it was silent, surviving only in prayer and memory. Then, in one of the most remarkable revivals in human history, Hebrew was reborn. In the late 19th century, Jewish scholars and visionaries decided to bring it back, not just as a symbol, but as a living, breathing language once more. Today, modern Hebrew is spoken by millions in Israel, yet it still carries the ancient rhythm of its past. It is proof that a language can die and be resurrected, like a people finding their voice again after centuries of silence. Aramaic, and then came Aramaic, the language of trade, faith, and transformation. Once spoken across the deserts and cities of the Near East, Aramaic became the common tongue of empires. It was simple yet powerful, spreading faster than any language of its time. Merchants used it in markets, priests used it in temples, and kings used it in royal decrees. But Aramaic carries a deeper story. It was the language spoken by prophets, including Jesus of Nazareth. The words he spoke to his followers were in Aramaic, not Greek or Latin. That alone gives this language a sacred place in human history. For centuries, it connected nations from Mesopotamia to Jerusalem. Even after the rise of Arabic and Greek, echoes of Aramaic survived in small villages, whispered in prayers by ancient Christian and Assyrian communities. Its alphabet influenced Hebrew and Arabic scripts, shaping how millions would later write and read. Today, only a few thousand people speak Aramaic, but it still lives in old churches in chants and in the hearts of those who refuse to let the oldest voice of faith disappear. Aramaic is not just a language. It is a survivor carrying the sound of humanity's earliest prayers through the corridors of time. Greek, Aramaic. In the lands kissed by the Aegean Sea, where the sun painted the marble temples of Athens in gold, a new language was born, Greek. More than a language, it became the voice of reason, philosophy, and democracy. From the 9th century BC onward, Greek shaped the way humans thought about existence, beauty, and truth. Greek was the first language to give birth to Western philosophy. In its syllables, Socrates questioned, Plato dreamed, and Aristotle defined logic itself. Through Greek words, ideas like cosmos, atom, and philosophy entered the human vocabulary, words still used in science and thought today. Its alphabet, descended from Phoenician script, brought vowels for the first time in writing history, turning symbols into music. Greek literature, from the Iliad to the Odyssey, became the heartbeat of storytelling. Its myths, gods, and heroes were not just entertainment. They were mirrors reflecting human desire, fear, and destiny. Even today, half the vocabulary of modern science, medicine, and astronomy owes its roots to Greek. The language that once echoed in marble theatres and museums still whispers in every scientific discovery. Proof that ancient Greek never truly died. It only evolved into the language of human knowledge, Latin. When the Roman Empire rose, it carried with it a new voice. Latin, the language of law, power, and empire. From the dusty roads of Rome to the distant edges of Britain and North Africa, Latin became the sound of authority. Its words commanded legions, shaped governments, and carved the laws that would form the backbone of Western civilization. Latin. But Latin was not only the voice of empire, it was also the mother of poetry, philosophy, and religion. It gave rise to the Romance languages, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian, each carrying the rhythm of Rome in their veins. Through Latin, knowledge was preserved. When Europe fell into the Dark Ages, monks copied ancient texts by candlelight, keeping science and philosophy alive in the script of the Caesars. For over 1,000 years, Latin was the language of scholars, priests, and kings. The Bible was read in Latin. Scientific discoveries were recorded in Latin, and even Newton and Galileo wrote in it. Though it is no longer spoken in daily life, Latin never truly vanished. It transformed into the roots of the languages that billions now speak. In every courtroom term, every medical phrase, every motto carved on stone, Latin lives on, the eternal echo of a civilization that refused to be forgotten, Proto-Indo-European. But beyond all known empires, before the temples of Greece and the scripts of India, there existed a mysterious lost tongue, Proto-Indo-European. It was never written down, never recorded on stone or paper. Yet linguists believe it is the ancient ancestor of almost half the world's languages. Around 6,000 years ago, somewhere in the plains near the Black Sea or Central Asia, nomadic tribes spoke a language that would one day evolve into Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, Persian, Celtic, Slavic, and even English. It was the seed from which countless languages grew, a forgotten root beneath the forest of human speech. Reconstructed by comparing words across ancient tongues, scholars found astonishing similarities. The Sanskrit word ma, mother, the Latin matter, and the English mother all trace back to one lost word, ma. The connection is undeniable, as if the human voice itself carries a genetic memory. Proto-Indo-European reminds us that despite our divisions and distances, all of us once spoke the same language, one shared sound that united humanity before borders, faiths, and nations. It is the invisible origin of our words, and perhaps of our collective mind. And thus, from the Sumerian temples to the Roman palaces, from the deserts of Canaan to the mountains of India, the story of language tells the story of civilization itself. Words are not just sounds, they are time machines carrying memories across centuries. The oldest languages may fade, but their echoes never die. They live in every poem, every prayer, every whispered word of love and knowledge. Humanity began with a voice, and that voice still speaks through us. HD Kelu Jekom VX Wash Fars Du Kali.